Philip with Thrifty PS Gamer Reviews. These are Thoughts with Thrifty. Tonight I get to do Thought with Thrifty and Friend, which is going to be kind of fun. Got a buddy that I met through the Saltiest Gaming Pod here, Church Keys, and he is going to be kind of weighing in on some of these topics as well. Yeah, this is not a. I'm not going to try to do what everybody else does and make these streams all about Xbox. I'd like to talk about Sony things, just general gaming, and then absolutely I'm covering the hottest topic in gaming right now, which is Redfall. The second hottest topic that's going to be around longer is Final Fantasy 16. We're going to be covering that today. Sony has a state of play tomorrow for Final Fantasy 16, and it's going to be about 20 minutes of gameplay. I don't know if I'm going to watch it yet, but with that, they announced a state of play. They still haven't announced a showcase. All we have is Jeff Grubb, and that's so we're going to get into that too. State of plays that they do versus a big, massive showcase, and then, like I said, just straight up gaming. Just what is your favorite franchise and what is your favorite game in that franchise? So I know Church, you sent me a message earlier, and that's what I mean by that. If you chose God of War, is it God of War 1, 2, 3? Is it Chains of Olympus, Ascension? Yeah. Right. Because that's what I consider a franchise to be. It's a multiple things, multiple tabs. Good God. I'm thinking about my phone that I have up right now. No, multiple games in a franchise. Lord help me. Okay. I will also get started by saying I am not a professional in the absolute slightest. So with that, Church, what have you been playing lately? Oh wait, hey, hang on, Church, hang on. Whoops. Let me fix that real quick. Here we go. Once again, I repeat, I am not a professional. um, so Toolman told me that I couldn't hear you, or that he couldn't hear you, and so so let's try that again. What are you playing, Church? Yeah.
What to do?
Wait, hang on. Okay, Burning Shores. Hang on. Include mic audio, include party audio. Yes. All of that is on. All right, hang on, Church. We're going to do something. I'm going to leave this chat with you, and then I'm going to bring you into my party, okay? Hello? Okay. All right, so I'm going to leave this. So sorry, guys. I'm glad we had somebody in the chat who's helping my technologically illiterate self out. My goodness gracious. One of these days I'll be a real boy. Alright, Church, you there? Hey, Toolman, if you're still in here, can you tell me if you hear Church? Right, I don't have it up either. Alright, I want you to say something, Church. That's annoying. Hang on. This has not ever happened before. All video clips, including audio from the players and parties who allow their voices to... Oh! Church, go into your party settings, your profile settings, and allow your voice to be heard. Yep. Oh, man. I'm going to edit this out. Yeah, share your voice, go to the menu. Okay, go to PS, hit the PS button, open the control center, and then select Game Base. Go to your Friends tab and select the friend you want to chat with, select the party, and you should have the ability within that to mess with that. Game Base. Yeah, it's under voice chat settings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that should work.
Good Lord. Alright, say something now, Church.
Alright, how does that sound too, man?
We'll give him a second to respond. Uh-huh.
Hang on, let me turn it up on YouTube and see if that works. Yeah, I can hear myself now.
Sweet. Okay, so, dear God. We are, let's see, what are we into this thing? 10 minutes now? And, yeah, okay, cool. So, you were talking about how you were churching up your weapons, which I find it awesome that you, like, put your name or your gamer tag into different phrases. This is like Holy Church, and we're gonna church it up, and
Yeah, churching up, leveling up the weapons in Forbidden West, and which kind of made me crave some more Call of the Mountains. I did a little bit of that, but mainly just getting ready for Burning Shores, which what I was telling you before is I have a buddy of mine who's trying to finish Forbidden West because he put it down, and now he's doing a mad race, which I can't help him, unfortunately, just in case the multiplayer drops with Burning Shores, and also doing the manhunt for Division 2, which is what I'm doing right now. I've got 4 agents there that I'm trying to get them through Season 11. And I did a little bit of the Sky Gamblers. I need to circle back to it, but I do kind of neglect my single player games. That's just the way I am, because I know no matter if I start them in 3 minutes or 3 years, they're still going to be the same. Thrifty,
Can't,
you're still there,
yeah, I'm sorry. I've been responding this whole time. I had my mic raised up and I didn't realize it.
right? Okay.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you carried the show. That was good though. So Jesus.
No worries.
This is not the night for this. I actually had like some really good thoughts planned, and it's just like I had rails and then it fell off quickly. So church said using church as a substitute swearing as much as sorry, using church as the substitute for swearing as much is what I've noticed. Yeah, well,
When I was a kid, I grew up
Let me think this
to a very old school Pentecostal minister who was a World War II vet. And I couldn't say the real version of that, but he allowed that version, so it just kind of grew on me. I mean, yeah, I still curse. It's just one of those things that, as a kid, he was just like, hey, you can't say that, you know.
you can't do that. But what you can do.
No, that was something I just came up with. But you got to remember, I was the son of a preacher man, so yeah, and a missionary.
I almost
And
started singing. That was gonna be bad. Go ahead.
Pentecostal is like they're like military Christians, man. You
Uh-huh.
don't want to mess with them. They are. My mom is the type person who doesn't wear makeup, does not wear jeans or pants. The only pair of pants I've ever seen my mom in is sweatpants. She wore those to exercise. When she's done, she takes them off. She's back in a skirt or dress. No lipstick, only lip gloss. No nail polish unless it's clear, for protective reasons. And that is it. That's just the way they were, man. So that was just part of my upbringing. I never really kind of freebased on vulgarities. But yeah, I do curse. I'm just not heavy-handed with it.
Did you just say you never really freebased on
Yeah,
profanity?
I don't just vomit, curse words like some people, which it doesn't bother me. It's just not who I am. It would sound very forced if I just said a bunch of, FS, you know, back to back. It's just not me. If I came in talking like King Thrash, you'd be like, "Dang, church, what's wrong, dude?" What's...
Dude, did you see his video today?
I did. I saw both of them. If that helps, I'm not sure which one you're referring to. But...
So, not jumping ahead, but the Redfall one, dude, that thing had me laughing my butt off, dude.
Oh yeah,
That was because he brought back the Sarah McLachlan song,
yeah.
and I was just done. Like, I needed it
That's
too because
trash.
I watched it at the end of a really long day, and so yeah, man, it was great. So speaking of that and shows like that and stuff like I'm, trying to do on here, let's go ahead and get into our first topic. And so the first topic that I have on the books is, Sony just announced a state of play for tomorrow. That's all well and good. Fine, whatever. It's going to be over Final Fantasy 16, which is one of our topics tonight. They haven't announced their show yet, right? So all we have is Jeff Grubb and what he's telling us, and the fact that it's unprecedented for a big company like this to go as long as they have without giving us some sort of big event, right? So my question, and I want to know your thoughts on it, are do you prefer these like smaller state of plays, maybe get a trailer or two dropped for another game, but just like heavy in-depth focusing on one title? Or is that your thing, or would you prefer to not do state of plays, but just do like one big 3-hour showcase?
For me personally, I like the Skittles approach, man. Give me a little bit of variety. Because if you have a huge state of play about one game that like I don't care about, then I'd be like, okay, well, this is really not for me, and then it could affect whether or not I tune in or not, so to speak. Perfect example, I'm not a huge Final Fantasy fan, so if there's a state of play solely dedicated to Final Fantasy, I'm not going to say I wouldn't watch it, just out of morbid curiosity, but I wouldn't sit there and just be like, oh my God, be on pins and needles trying to tune in for it, so to speak, especially if I'm available live.
Okay, okay. I mean, I can see that. That is one of the reasons why I do kind of like the summer showcase or the sorry, it's the Summer Games Fest and the Game Awards because I like to fast forward through all the crap I don't care about and get the good little snippets of all the things coming out, right? And
Sure.
so I like that. But man, part of me really wants either they need to take these state of plays and kind of double them to make them like 45 minutes long, or they need to take and I think they do need to do a big showcase. Like, and part of this is because I like being able to kind of, hang my little tiny hat on the fact that we have games coming out all the time, right? I love that. I love that as a gamer, when you have a PlayStation, you have games coming out all the time. And I really wish that they would showcase that to show that, hey, listen, here's the games that all these studios that released big games 2, 3 years ago, here's everything they're working on. And here's the points of it, which where they're at. Like I thought when they came out and did Last of Us Factions, and said like, "Hey guys, listen, this is where we're at on it. We got concept art." Like that's, I liked that because it still kind of let us know, okay, cool, we're at the concept art stage. This is now. I don't think they need to do what the other company does and make it so like so far out, right? But we do need a showcase. I think we need one. I think that if they go another year without it, I will be fully surprised. The other thought I had was Jeff Grubb likes them. Like he really likes Sony. He gets along with Sony. He has a good like relationship with the higher ups and he's like why not use his shows as a type of showcase? Like announce 5 or 6 new projects that are coming to the PlayStation or that PlayStation has the marketing rights on or what have you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, cool. This is like Tim the Toolman Taylor with Al. Man, a few words here. All right. Well,
Well, yeah,
okay.
it makes sense, but I guess where you and I are of two different thoughts is just that I'm the type person that if they didn't have a showcase, it wouldn't kill me because I've been around since the inception of games, at least as far as availability to the public. So me being in the dark doesn't drive me as bananas like the younger generation, uh, because it's like I know with Sony. And I guess to use an old school analogy from my grandma, when my sister had her baby, when she went to go see my grandma, she was telling her all about the labor and how long it took and all this other stuff. My grandma was like, Don't tell me about the pain. Show me the baby." Like, what? What? So Sony shows the baby. I know that they're working on something, and they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs. So as long as they keep that flowing, and they've done that since the PlayStation One. Uh, they've always managed their pipeline very well. So I'm
Pause.
sure they're I'm sure they're yes, pause. I'm sure they're working on something. So it doesn't drive me bananas not to know. Uh, it would be nice to know, sure. But if they didn't, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm so busy with my backlog and work. It's just like, yeah, it's okay if I get a surprise here and there,
Sure,
if that
and
if that makes sense.
it really does because everyone, not everyone. I have a really bad problem with using that term. The talking Xbox on Twitter would try to have you believe that like because Sony is only has announced Spider-Man 2 as their only exclusive this year from a first party studio that it's a bad year for Sony. Well, no, like we're probably getting something in the holidays because Spider-Man's probably going to be in September, so they have something lined up for the holidays. I'd be shocked if they didn't. But look at their track record. Like having one year where we get one game from Sony is not bad because look at what they've done. They got the marketing rights for Hogwarts, made it tons of money. They got the they got Final Fantasy 16, which is from what I've been hearing co-developed by Sony. Like somebody was reporting the other day that it's a co-developed like this and Forspoken were co-developed with
Sony and
Sony.
Square have always been really close because the relationship between Square and Microsoft is strained for some unknown reason.
It
I'm not
happened
sure
when Phil Spencer took over.
what they did to piss off Square, but there are times where Square will just skip them all together, and it's just like okay. But I'm not 100% sure. I'm not gonna sit here and speculate on it, but something went south, and from what I've read up on, they one of the former developers or designers. I'm trying to remember. He said, yeah, it was totally Microsoft's fault, but he didn't really elaborate on what. So
Oh
that's about
yeah,
as close as I can get.
yeah, that came out. That was circulating like last week or the week before. Like the guy was they were talking about the relationship between Sony and Microsoft and I'm sorry, Square and Microsoft, and like it just vanished into thin air because there was a time, and it wasn't a money issue because in Sony, I mean heavily. That's why they got 13, 13-2, 13 Lightning Returns. I don't remember if they got 14 or not. I don't think they did, but they got 15. They might have gotten 14, and like that little cluster right there of years from like early 2000s, yeah, early 2000s to like 7 years ago. Like that that's like 20 years where everything is like okay, yeah, we're going to release it on everything. As a matter of fact, Microsoft, I believe, still has the marketing rights to Final Fantasy 13 because that's why we can't get it on the PS4. I believe I'm correct in that because we can't get it on the PS4, but it's available on Game Pass. And
Could be. I mean, I'm not the type of person to really speculate a whole lot. Very rarely, but yeah, that could be part of it. But as far as to like what exactly happened, I don't know.
oh no, I have no idea. I just know that it wasn't money related because, geez, when they tried to take a big bite out of Sony uh, back after Final Fantasy X-2, I believe, uh, they ended up just completely destroying Sony's offer. And Square was like, "Yeah, for that much money, yeah, we'll do multiplats. That's fine." Like, like, yeah, great. Because Square has. I mentioned this uh, whenever I did the last one of these. That Square has a problem where they rely on their tentpole games, and if they don't just sell gangbuster numbers, the whole studio or the whole like publisher just starts to collapse in on itself. It's bad. But
Wow.
anyways, and that's fact. That's not speculation. That's 100% fact. If Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 remake, and Kingdom Hearts 3 wouldn't have sold as well as they did, they would have had to shut their doors or found some creative way of like filing a bankruptcy. You know how companies can do that crap. File a bankruptcy and then like restart up from what they were anyways. It's but like they've always had that financial roller coaster with them where oh my god, it's terrible. We're going to shut our doors and now we're not. So I know it wasn't money, but something happened and it just destroyed that. But anyways, this wasn't supposed to be about Xbox. This was about PlayStation. Um, since we're kind of talking about Square and all that, let's go ahead and talk about Final Fantasy 16, which you said you're not really big into those games,
Hmm.
but I'm wondering because part of what I wanted to talk about was the combat in it. I'm wondering if the new, more Devil May Cry style of combat uh, is gonna like pique your interest a little bit.
I can be swayed. I mean, that was the whole thing that happened with the Far Cry series. I had zero interest in it 'cause not really big on first-person shooters. I almost said FPS, which can be misconstrued. But
Especially right now, don't do that.
yeah, I'm not really big with first-person shooters, so it took a bit. But I do like improvised weapons. They have a certain charm to them. And that's kind of what got me into Far Cry 6, and it's the whole reason why I'm playing the entire Far Cry series in reverse right now, so I won't get graphical shock from going, from 6 to 1. Which I was able to find all of the previous Far Cries, but I had to use my Series X to get the first two because they were not on console. But they were converted over to the Xbox 360, which means I could purchase them on they weren't on Game Pass, but I could purchase them in the Microsoft Store. So I do have them, and I did take a little sneaky peek at the very first one, just out of morbid curiosity. And yeah, it was for what it was. It was pretty impressive, for its time. I have to give it to them, and I see why Ubisoft actually bought the rights to them. But about Final Fantasy, yeah, I can be persuaded. I never say never when it comes to video games. Unless it's just something that's just so far out there, it's like okay, like you'd be hard pressed to get me to play like a card battler game on a console because it's just not something that I enjoy. Uh, Type of deal. Even if it's something I play in real life, like Uno, I just don't enjoy it as much on a digital console. Um,
Mm,
but there
yeah.
is an online aspect to it that might persuade me to play Uno online, which, a lot of people talking about Marvel Snap right now. Uh, so I do like Marvel characters, but as far as like just, I'm going to get into this whole Marvel Snap thing when I know I don't like that type of genre, would just, I wouldn't say be foolhardily on myself, but it would, definitely probably not work out. I mean, with the amount of years I have under my belt, I kind of already know what I like and what I don't like. It didn't start off that way because, again, I've been around since inception. You kind of played whatever was out at the time versus what you know, I didn't, it took me a long time to develop my taste as far as like video games go because of that. But now that it's established, uh, Final Fantasy seems digestible. What I don't like about Final Fantasy is it just seems so far out there. I mean, the characters have like superior grade hair. Their attitudes seem to be really. I'm just like, wow, man. It like very over exaggerated, I guess. And that's the part that just really I'm just like, okay, I don't know about this. This looks like it's too far out there for even me. But again, it's not that I just wouldn't do it, if that helps.
So, with that, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So, you talk. Do you watch anime?
I do.
Okay. Um, so in anime, those are way over the top, overacted nine times out of 10 from what I see.
Hmm.
So like, also, do you like other like Japanese games? Persona. Uh, why is that the only one popping in my head? Persona, Trails, Tales of Arise. Do you like other RPGs?
I'm actually playing an RPG right now, but it's not a Japanese one. I haven't done any of the ones that you mentioned.
Okay.
Again, they're just way over the top. Most of the anime that I watch is extremely violent or gory,
Okay.
like Fist of the North Star, Ghost in the Shell. The serious, hardcore, type of animes. The ones that are Like silly or zany, they just don't do it for me. Final Fantasy seems to fall like in that niche to a degree. I think from what I've heard, they're all different. It does sound just like okay, but like even in the PlayStation 1 days, I didn't really get into Final Fantasy, and it was super hot back then. You know, everybody talks about Final Fantasy 7, I think was the first one. But yeah, it's just not something that's ever really. And plus, I stay so busy with other games. It's like for me to like float off my beaten path, it's rare.
So I get that. I get that. And you mentioned your backlog earlier. I
Of
actually,
course,
my
yeah.
backlog is retardedly insane. It's bad. Um, but so here's why I wanted to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy 16 tonight. I started playing uh, Final Fantasy in with Final Fantasy 7, right? I went 7, 8, 9, even though I hated it. 10, 10-2, even though it was the most ridiculous premise ever. It was basically girl band, and I'm not even kidding. Like, anyways, like that's essentially what it was. But it had a really cool battle system, a really awesome level up system, and kind of switching jobs in the middle of what you're doing, and it was really cool. With that regard, the story premise was trash. Um, then I played 13 for 2 hours. I played 13-2 for less than that. And then 13-3 was actually a really fun game. And I played 15 and beat that. So, I mean, I've played these games. I'm one of those guys who is able to kind of love that type of genre, but also understand that certain games within that genre do need to evolve if they want to stay popular and stay relevant. So, like, there's this, everybody's predicting it's going to be a huge, huge, massive success. And on one end, I'm like, well, of course it is. It's Final Fantasy, right? Like, it's,
I will admit this much: I am curious about the Final Fantasy VII remake. I've heard so many good things about it, so that would probably be the one game that would get me into it as far as like that whole genre because I've never played Final Fantasy VII. But it's like the same thing with the Resident Evil that they're talking about now. I never have been a huge Resident Evil fan. It's one of those genres I can take or shake. You know, I can take it or shake it. Uh, and I did do the first three, and I kind of stopped right there. And I was like, okay, I kind of had enough of this.
so you
It's just,
stopped right before what's considered the best Resident
yep,
Evil.
I stopped at three, and I was like, okay, I've had it, but I started with the original on the PlayStation 1, the tank controls, all that good stuff. With me in horror games just in general, sorry, I hit my mic. Just with me in horror games in general, it's it what makes it tough for me is I don't get scared off of video games because I'm so invested in them, and I know that might sound just the opposite. You would have a better chance of scaring me if I wasn't controlling my character, controlling my inventory, and just being busy doing a million things. In addition to, looking out for, a tango or a demon or whatever that's going to jump out at me. So the whole time, just like I was telling you, I played, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, right? The only scare that I got out of it was the very first one when the German Shepherd like burst through the window, and that was it. Like the rest of it, I couldn't even tell you where I got scared at because I was so busy managing inventory. Now, had I been sitting there watching it with a bowl of popcorn and a cola or adult beverage, yeah, you'd have a better chance of scaring me because I'm not managing inventory. I'm not trying to, oh, how many bullets do I have? Let me look at my gun again. If I come around this corner, if they jump me, am I going to swing or am I going to shoot? All that stuff is calculating in my head, which has me already on guard. So it's a tougher time scaring me. So horror games very rarely do they. It's the same thing for Silent Hill. I did play the first Silent Hill, but I mean, again, the scares just weren't there for me
And so
because
you
I'm.
stopped once again before the best game in the franchise. Now, I don't like horror games. I don't play them. Last of Us, that's about as horror as I get, and then Resident Evil 5, which if anybody's played that, that is a shooter all the way. Like it's such an easy game and such a fun game, and there's not a lot of jump scares. It didn't feel anything like Resident Evil. I played Resident Evil 3, I skipped 4, and I played 5. So I'm kind of in the same boat on that, but I don't like games that, because if the game is first person, right, those scare me a whole lot more, or get me on those jump scares
Uh-huh.
more than games that are third person, right?
I can see that. I can see that.
Because first person, you don't have the 360 view around you. You have what is in front of you. And so what's to the left, to the right, or behind you, you don't know. And so creeps me out. So you said you could be swayed. Do you like action games?
I do.
Okay. So I don't know how much you followed it since it's not really a game that's on your radar, but the guy who designed and did the combat system for Devil May Cry is actually the one who's doing the combat system for Final Fantasy 16.
Gotcha. I'm familiar with Devil May Cry. More so in the Bayonetta camp, but I did do a few of the Devil May Cries. I don't remember which ones off the top of my
You
head.
just think Bayonetta looks better than Dante.
Well,
And
yeah.
and well, yes. I mean, I just realized how that sounded. Yes, no. In the way of cartoon animated characters, sure. But oh, and so like yes, I am very nervous about the game, and here's why I'm nervous.
Sorry to
Uh,
hear that.
well, I want it to do well. Square needs it to do well, but going to if they're going to a full on uh, action system and not like a Final Fantasy VII remake where it's like this beautiful merging and hybrid of the two. And I mean, it is a wonderful, wonderful hybrid. Um, where for people like me, you can still do a few of the like you can pause, not pause, but the screen will like slow and you can do an item or you can do stuff like that. But once you get out of that item screen, it's just 90 to nothing. Everybody's doing something. The whole screen is going absolutely bonkers. And so, like, if they don't do that, and if they go more action, I think there's the risk of alienating the 3.5, 4.5 million people who purchased Final Fantasy VII Remake like within the first 3 days. Because
Okay,
like,
so with the remake, what type of setup did they have in Final Fantasy?
oh my goodness, I should have had it downloaded and I could have played it tonight. Um,
Okay.
because I could have live streamed it and you would have been able to see the kind of the gameplay. Um, but it's set up in the sense of it's action oriented and you can choose between three different characters that you can fight with. Okay? So like you have Cloud who's the main character and
Hmm.
then you'll generally have two other characters that you can bring in and out. Like you have Barrett, you have Tifa, you have Aerith, and Cloud, and those are the four. I think that's it. I think those are the only four you get until, and then in intermission you can play as Yuffie. But like you can cycle between them, and like Barrett is your ranged guy. He's your gunner. He's has a gun for an arm, literally. And Aerith is pretty much your healer, and Tifa is your fighter. Her combat in that thing is some of the best and most fun in any game, hands down. She is constantly just fist, roundhouse, kicking people up in the air, jumping up and hitting them in the air. And then Cloud is your typical JRPG main character with a big freaking sword. And so, like, you have all these different play styles for each one, and you can choose which one you want to be at any given time. Then, as the combat like goes on, or as your encounter goes on, if you lose health, you hit a button and it pulls up the item menu, and you can select what item to use, and then you can select who to use it on. While that's going on, there's one mode where it like pauses everything, like stop in that mode. And then there's another one where it like just kind of slows it down a bit. And like so you get the blending of that turn-based a little bit
I
right
see
there,
what you're saying. Okay.
but everything else is screaming action.
It must be really slow when you're in a menu or something.
Right, it moves really slow. But
Okay.
like once you're out of that menu, boom, it's right back to doing everything on the screen, burst effects everywhere. I have said it once and I'll say it again. Square Enix offers some of the best combat effects and animation of any studio, any publisher, hands down.
Kind of noticed that with Forspoken, man, because it was really fantastical at times. I was just like, man, what is going on here? Like, it was like, I don't know if I'm alive, dead. There's so much, shit on screen that just blew the fuck up. It's like, what, what just happened right here, man? But so yeah, I can see that. I can see how it could translate over to. As a matter of fact, they were saying a lot about Forspoken used the engine from Final Fantasy 15. And
Yep.
believe it or not, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this. 15 was the one that caught my eye because of the car that was in there. I was like,
Yeah.
look at this thing. It's like a 6x6, man. Like, what the heck is this? It looks so, it was a convertible. It had, four-wheel drive in the front. I was like, what? That is so cool. And it was one of the ones I almost bought because I was like, man, this looks cool. And that was the one that piqued my interest in Final Fantasy to find out more because I was like, what? Okay, so if I just like hop in and play 15, would I have to know about all the other 14 before it?
No.
And they're like, nah, they're all different. Each one is its own little environment or universe or whatever, the way that they
Yep.
explained it. And I almost bought it. I came really close, but again, my backlog, I think, kind of swooped back in at the time. And I'm still not against it, because it does look very interesting, but people are saying like, yeah, 15 is not the best. You want to play this one. They never recommend that one first. I'm like, all right, well, they're the fan base. I'm not gonna,
Right.
I'm not gonna challenge the native. Perfect example with Far Cry, the very first one that caught my eye, and again, this is because of the improvised weapons. Was New Dawn. When I saw New Dawn and I saw the improvised weapons, and I almost bought it. And a buddy of mine was like, dude, you can't just hop in and play New Dawn. I was like, why? Because you got to play 5, man. I was like, but I like this one. He's like, you're not going to know what the hell's going on. So I was like, you know what? Stuff it. I'm just not, no. I just won't play any of them. How about that? And that was, 5 years ago? Since Far Cry 5 is celebrating its 5th anniversary, I think New Dawn came out, like a year or two after it or something like that. Which I have played New Dawn now. I've played New Dawn and Far Cry 5.
So, so listen to this. Like, I started at Far Cry 3, and I hate first-person shooters. I absolutely loathe them.
Most people have, because that was the first one to hit consoles.
And I played the absolute dog mess out of that game. And
I
then
haven't gotten to it yet.
I
I'm
played
working on 4.
and I hated it. I played Primal, and I took it back and got a full refund on a used game purchase. I played
Okay.
5, and I made it to the first section. So 5 starts you on like that island area, sort of, like that area that's like secluded. And
Far Cry 5?
yes, and then when you go to
yeah.
then you get sent over to the big section of the map, right?
Yes.
And so I took out the first, the first prophet, the first child, one of his kids. I took them out, And then by that point, I had spent like 30 something hours in the game, and I was like, I'm done. I have now burnt myself out. But in all fairness, I did that recently with a franchise I love. So that's not like saying much. I'm such a freaking like completionist. Uh, hey, Church Toolman asked if you care if he sends you a PlayStation friend request.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
It's
cool.
same name. Church Keys. Oh wait, on PlayStation there's a dash in the middle. On Xbox Live it's just words. I think they allow you to have that on the Xbox side.
Yeah, nobody cares about Xbox though.
I see.
Um, so, but like, I started with the best one in the franchise, and no other one has been able to keep me wrapped into it like that. But there's also a good thing, like you said, I've been playing video games since they became mainstream, right? Like not even mainstream, since the Nintendo I've been playing. Like if you ever are on my channel and you read like, the channel description, the thing that nobody ever reads, the like in there is a little bit of like when I started playing and why I started my
Gotcha.
channel. But like back then, you just played what you had. So when I got Far Cry 3, it was the game that I had chose to spend my money on. And so guess what? That
Gotcha.
meant I was playing that stupid thing until I beat it. It's because I had chosen to spend my money. And, and now I have adult money, and so
Okay.
I get
Gotcha.
more things, right? I can choose my own money now, and or not choose my own money. I can choose what I spend my money on. But like, so back to this, back to my concern. Um, my concern is really just that the community, the gaming community, which, as you've said, when you've talked to people who are Final Fantasy like fans, um, don't listen to us as a new player coming in unless you already like JRPGs because we are very pretentious and we are very, very, uh,
Finicky?
no, I was gonna say more of the like shake weighty variety. Like we are very just jackasses sometimes when it comes to what game in the series is the best for somebody to start on. Because if you're a fan for a long time, you might get, nah, man, you got to start with Final Fantasy VI. It has the best story. Nah, dude, Final Fantasy VII has the best this. Nah, man, it's Final Fantasy X. They did the Final Fantasy stuff, but with way better graphics, and everything looks good. And there's callbacks to Final Fantasy VII in it, so you get that. And like then some folks are gonna say, nah man, listen, Lightning Returns, the graphics, the combat, the way they tied everything in and actually made a good game, like you are going to get a different answer from damn near everybody you ask if you
I'm sure.
ask the fans. If you ask somebody like me who can like take a step back and go, okay, what kind of games do you like? Okay, cool, you like these kind of games. Okay, well, cool. Final Fantasy has a um, Toolman. That's a travesty. Toolman just
What?
said he still hasn't played any Final Fantasy games. I can't believe there's two people in this world who haven't. That makes me sad.
Haven't played any.
Um, the so like there was a shooter, a third-person shooter that came out on the PS2. So like if you really like shooters and like action combat, I'd tell you to go play Dirge of Cerberus. Let that be your first entrance, and then if you like that, then kind of like you're doing with Far Cry, kind of work backwards. Like if you're a really heavy action guy, you're gonna want to work backwards from like Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 15. Then
RPGs don't scare me. I mean, again, I'm playing an RPG right now, real time. It's just it's just a genre overall that just kind of like it seemed like a game that was hard to be taken seriously, at least from everything that I've seen.
every single Final Fantasy game up to this point is a game that's hard to take seriously. Okay, and
Okay, so I was
I'm
right.
well because here's why. Yes, it is a high fantasy setting, okay? So
Okay.
right there, you're going to have a ton of over-the-top crap. Two, they used to market to like children. So
I
like
kind of picked up on that.
teenagers and younger kids. So everything was very colorful, very bright, very whimsical, very just.
Well, see,
But they
that was the
also
issue I
go
had
ahead.
with like Mario and Sonic. I was an older gent when Mario was born and Sonic. And it's not that I think either one of those are bad games. I don't. I respect them for what they are and what they've done for the industry. I've even played several of them here and there. So I don't play them religiously. But yeah, I'd say probably my favorite was Sonic Spinball. I really had a good time with that because I am a pinball fan. But I've played the regular Sonics and I've played the regular Mario's. It's just it's not something I'm deeply vested in. So with that said, I could probably do the same with Final Fantasy. It's just it's going to be something that I'm probably not going to be deeply vested in, but can I play them? Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to make the time for it to see if it's something I can get into. But it's just, it's not a genre that I'm going to be like a super fan of. I can be a journeyman and not necessarily, have to sit there and be like, okay, that's it. I'm going full tilt into Final Fantasy. And you never know. It could happen. Uh, just like with Far Cry, there have been some genres that I kind of regret getting into late. Just low key regret with Far Cry because now that I've played several of them, it's like okay, I get it now. This is the same formula over and over again, but that's Ubisoft.
It's literally the same formula. It's Assassin's Creed, first person with guns. Like that's the.
Gotcha.
But so I mean, and I get that, and I think that I actually, talking to you more and more about the games that you play and like what you like to do in games, like just dive in like head first and like figure out everything and find everything and just invest a ton of time in it and explore stuff. Like I think you would absolutely love Final Fantasy 15 because that had one of the best open world setups of any of them. Now, I will tell you this.
And
That
that's my favorite genre is open world.
I know. So see, I would take what I know about you because I'm not one of those dumbasses. I would take what I know about you and go,
I don't know
hey,
what you mean by that, but okay.
one of those other guys who like you were talking to before about what game to start with, and like you reached out to some people and they were like, oh man, start with this one. Start with. No, I would tell you start with 15. Start with 15. That's the one that would cater more to your style. The action is fast enough to where I don't think you'd ever get bored with it. And to be quite honest, the story is really, really, really good until about 90% of the way through. But like it's really good up till it just blah.
So that's the one with the four spoken controls that everybody was complaining about.
Traversal's way different in it than in Forspoken.
Okay.
Uh, like you don't get to slide around, you don't get to glide around on anything. You don't. It
She's not gliding around on anything, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, she like
It's not that
floats or
fast.
whatever. Like it's it's
Magical parkour.
sure.
Well, that's what they called it anyway.
Sounds like the name of a goth band. What's your band's
Touche.
name? Magical parkour. Oh shit. Okay, so let's get into the last topic before we get into just gaming talk.
Sure.
Redfall. Okay, like I only have 5 people watching. I'm pretty sure they'll be okay with this. If not, I don't care. Redfall. Redfall is a. Oh shit! I can't even get through this. Redfall is a Series X and S exclusive,
I saw that.
and the game that's been delayed, I think, almost for a full year. I think the game that was delayed for a full year is now still not releasing. Oh wait, hang on. And it was removed from being multiplat which the developer said gave them more time to focus and made it easier to develop for just one thing. God. And now they're saying it's only going to be released in quality mode at 4K, at 4K, at 30 frames per second. Mind you, this is a first-person shooter. This is uh, a kind of a vampire game from the PS3, Xbox 360 era graphically, and like with
Saw
those
that.
with those crappy graphics, we can't get 60 frames per second. Like we've we've seen that Forspoken, or not Forspoken, Lord Jesus, we've seen that Fortnite doesn't need beautiful graphics, but that shit's at think what it like on PC it runs 240, I think. On consoles, I think they have 120 now. Like you're you're telling me that we can't get 60 frames per second on a game that you now only have to worry about developing for one platform? Like how in the you know it's bad when like with the exception of a couple people, the entire Xbox community is like, dude, this is trash. What like we would roll with you for the gameplay because whatever first person shooters, it's a big genre. We can get behind you. It doesn't have to look just amazingly realistic and gorgeous, whatever. But now you're telling us it's not even at 60 frames per second, which is the baseline for first person shooters? Like, if I was an Xbox person, which I'm not, but if I was, I would be pissed. I would feel like, Dark Doc said it the very best, and I'm not mentioning his name to get clout. He probably doesn't even know I exist. But this dude said that this is one of the very few times that he's ever regretted his purchase of a Series X because he has no games that require it except for Forza. Like, you got people. I saw, so Kofi posted something in our group chat, and uh, it was about Uni's space on Twitter. And dude, I went to that thing. There were 500 of us just sitting in there listening, and it was like Xbox people and a couple PlayStation people. Like, but the Xbox folks were like, yeah, this is crap. I won't be playing this. This is nothing. I don't pay my Game Pass subscription every month for games like this. This is messed up. Like they're finally starting to like see it. But then you have folks. Uh, One of them has a YouTube channel, and I don't like him, so he doesn't even get a mention. But he
Okay.
he's out there being like this super apologist for it. Like, nah, man, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fine. It looks okay. Like, would you shut up? Like, just call it what it is, man. Like, you got Tim Dog over here going, yeah, this thing needs to be delayed for at least 2 months. Like, you got these people, all of them sitting here talking about it. Like, yeah, it's bad. I was watching a stream the other day, and they were just talking about the gameplay of it. weren't The news hadn't broke about 30 frames per second or whatever. And dude who was doing the stream noticed that an achievement popped up in the lower right hand corner of the gameplay screen, and it was a Steam achievement, which means the footage that was released was from a PC build of the game. So that crappy, freaking, choppy, ugly graphical mess was actually from a PC, which is supposed to give you the best, most optimized performance, period. It's 30 frames per second. The best we can do for Game Pass. Sorry, guys. The best we can do for Game Pass is an FPS at 30 frames per second, but it's free. And it's a $70 game, so look at the value that you're getting. I couldn't help myself but to just when the Twitter message came through that somebody posted Redfall at 30 frames per second, I was like, whatever. This is a rumor. This is somebody reporting. This is whatever. Then I found out it was actually Arcane Studios that released this information. I was like, oh dear God, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be terrible today. And today's one of the very few times that, the community hasn't really, like, PlayStation gamers are putting their arms around Xbox gamers and being like, listen, guys, we are sorry. This sucks. Can you admit that this sucks now? And they're like, yes, yes, it really sucks. We agree. It finally, like, they finally opened their eyes. So that's my rant about that. That's my little spiel about that. But my question is why? Because we know Arcane can make 60 frames per second games. They did with Deathloop, right? Like, we know that they can do that. I think Deathloop was Arcane, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we know that they can do 60 frames per second. We know that they can do 60 frames per second in a game that doesn't look janky as crap. Like, Deathloop wasn't this technical marvel, but it looked good and it ran smooth. I mean, it's a first person shooter, so I played like 20 minutes of it maybe, but it wasn't because of the frame pacing or because of the way the game looked. I just don't like shooters. So why? What why do you think what do you think's going on? Is it mismanagement? Is it the Series S? Is it like what is causing this to happen with a game that like is supposed to be one of their big titles of the year?
Well, I think it's a couple things. Series S, yes, I do believe that's part of it. Simply because you have to look at, first of all, what the Xbox is. And by Xbox, I mean the Series X. It does have 12 teraflops, but to date, we haven't even seen a game that's taken advantage of even half of that. So, with an in-house game, like what with Microsoft regulation of, it has to be on the S and X and you can't exclude any modes, surely that presents some challenges. I mean, when somebody tells you, okay, you've got to use half of the power, to make sure it fits on this thing, it's going to cause limitations from the start, to where they're going to automatically, I mean, you have to look at the Series S doesn't even have a developer's kit. It uses the one for the Series X, and there's just toggle switches that are in there that they turn off to replicate what the Series S can do. So yeah, that's definitely part of it. The other part is if and again, I hate speculating, but the other part is just would be Game Pass. Looking at the direction that I think Microsoft is going in, which I think they're going the route of YouTube, where they automatic, and what I mean by that is they're automatically focusing in on their Game Pass ecosystem. So everything is about Game Pass and not necessarily about the console. So their revenue is either going to come from A, advertisements like YouTube, or B, engagement. Like, did they click it? Did they download it? Did they play it? Doesn't matter as long as they engage with it. They did click on it. They did download it, but their completion rate is very low. Uh, that goes for me as well because like the last titles that everybody jumped and hollered and hooped about on the Xbox, I was just like, really? And that went for Hi-Fi Rush. That went for High on Life. I was just that went for Scorn. I was just like, dude, when I played Scorn, I was like, I feel like I'm in somebody's anus, man, or like I'm doing a lower GI. Like, what is this, man? Um, it, that's what it looked like to me. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm uninstalling this, but they got my click from downloading it and at least checking it out. Uh, with High on Life, I mean, when I started playing it and then Forspoken came out and they were talking about the banter in it, I was just like, I didn't see it as excessive because I was like, wow, I just played High on Life and that was like complete audio vomit the whole time. And the game really wasn't all that. Again, you got to remember, I'm not really big into first-person shooters. I can't tolerate them because A, that's how video games started out. If you look back to the Doom and Duke Nukem era and all that. So yeah, I'm very familiar with first person. I'm comfortable with it. Is it a preference now that third person is available? No, not really. But uh, so High on Life was okay. I did manage to kind of bobble through it. But then when I played Hi-Fi Rush, I thought it was atrocious. I was just like, oh my god, I couldn't do it. I installed it. It wasn't a game that I completed. So uh, looking at that as me suspecting that that's Xbox's business model is just the engagement and the advertisement. Uh, I think that's also something that's hurting uh, Redfall as a whole because it doesn't matter if the game is good or not. Did you engage with it? It's kind of, I believe that's what they plan on making their money off of with Game Pass. So, but moreover, yeah, it would be the Series S as part of it. I wasn't impressed with any aspect of the game at all. It looks like a Hanna Barbera Scooby Doo type of video game, man. I mean, if Shaggy and Scooby showed up, it wouldn't surprise me at all. They wouldn't look out of place in that game. Period.
Oh, that's a
I
good
don't.
point. I didn't even think of that.
The whole gameplay, if you look at it,
Yeah.
you still can't really ascertain what the hell is going on. Why is there lightning everywhere? Like, what's the objective of this game? Is this, I get, it's a first-person shooter, but what the heck are we doing here? Like, what's going on? Like, I just I don't get it at all. So yeah, even though it's on Game Pass, you still have to kind of value your time. There's only so many hours in a day, especially if you work full or part-time or whatever, even if you don't work at all. It's you got to look at what am I going to spend my time playing, and it's for me with my Xbox, the majority of stuff that I play on there is, and this is mainly because of Microsoft slot, is a lot of 360 titles that I missed out on. I go and I download those because the 360 games that I did still have, none of them worked on the Series X. I don't know if it's licensing issues, but like I'm talking about full tilt, officially licensed disc. I put it in my Series X, and it's like, oh, we can't verify the license on this. I'm like, what are you talking about? There were two that I had that I never even opened because my 360 broke right after I bought them. And one of them was Remember Me by Capcom. The other one was what was the other one that was on there? Binary Domain. I hadn't opened either one of them. They were still in the cellophane. So for all intents and purposes, new. Just, you know,
I thought the Series X was supposed to be fully backwards compatible.
it's not. I guess because of licensing issues, that was how they advertised it. Is that it was supposed to be fully backwardsly compatible?
But
But if it's a game that's in the Microsoft Store and you have it, the only physical disc that I have, and this was out of about 66 games that I still owned for my 360, there's only one that worked, one out of 66. The other 65 I can use it for coasters.
but you were
And that
supposed to be able to. Now wait a second, hang on. They didn't have DRM back then. That did they?
I think it's I think they're not allowing them to play. It's not that I don't that the Series X or S can't play them. It's just that for licensing issues, they won't allow them to boot up.
No,
Uh,
okay. So work with me here because I'm not saying what I'm meaning. So like the PlayStation 2, I can take a PlayStation 2 disc, pop it into PlayStation 2, and it works. Same for a PS3, same for a
uh-huh.
PS4. But let's stick with PS3 and PS2 because that's kind of the era we're talking about here. That
Sure.
being backwards compatible means all it has to do is read the information on the disc.
Correct.
So are you telling me that Xbox 360 games had a license that had to be verified when you played that title on the 360, or is that something new that because the Xbox is trying to verify that license and that license isn't there, it's not working.
You got it. So now if I
Oh
put it
my
in my
gosh.
360, it still works.
Okay,
But
okay.
perfect example, like Lollipop Chainsaw. That was one of the bigger titles on the 360.
It was.
Uh, um, if I put that in my Series X, it doesn't work. If I put it in my 360, which is on its last leg, because the doors is, and keep in mind this is my third 360, the other two red ringed on me. Uh, the doors kind of biffed. Like it doesn't like to open, so sometimes you have to kind of force it open. So I don't really play it that much. But I was looking forward to it. I was like, okay, cool. I can play it on the Series X. You know, I was excited when I got it, and then this. But yeah, if it's a title like Blood Drive, Blood Drive is like a death race type of game that I really enjoy playing on the 360. I can't play it on my Series X because it's not in the Microsoft Store. Metal Gear Rising is the only disc that I can take from my 360 days, put in to my Series X, and it will spin and work as intended.
Is Metal Gear Rising available in the Xbox
It
store?
is. It is.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's dirty. So, ooh, ooh. Anyways, Redfall, 30 frames per second, and why? Okay.
Series
Sorry.
S for sure
That's
on
just,
that front.
we'll circle back to what you just said because
Sure, sure.
that's another lie. Oh
It
my
is.
lord.
It
It's
is.
okay,
And
so
it did take the wind out of my sails, so I get it.
uh,
Because I mean, heck, I'm the one that still has the games. I've been sitting on like an ostrich egg waiting to play them, and I get this Series X, and it's like, nope. But it's the same thing with the optimization. You know, they were going through and cleaning up all these older titles, and you know, adding better graphics and frame rates and so on and so forth. And they just said, you know what, we're not gonna do that anymore. I'm just like, wow, really? You know, all the selling points that I bought my Series X for, it's like, we were just kidding.
right, and that's what I mentioned him earlier, but that's what Dark Doc was saying, or Doc Dark. Good lord, that's what he
Yeah.
was saying. He was like, "This is there's no reason. There's no reason for me to have this. Like outside of Forza, there's really no reason." And I'm like, man, that
Forza
is
is good. I will give them that much with Forza. And before, uh, I almost said Thrifty, but before Wooly talked me into Gran Turismo, I'm a racer that likes to race from the cockpit view. Pause. I know. Um, and I even do that in Forza, as buck wild as that game is, and by buck wild I mean it is not the gentleman's racer that Gran Turismo 7 is. You know, there's like huge all four tires off the ground jumps. There's loop de loops and stuff in that game. I still play it in first person because I drive in real life, and that's with me with racing games. That's one way not to overdrive your car, is if you're looking at it from a realistic perspective, you can make your corrections and whatnot that you need to do to make better times. And I like seeing the cockpit view with the steering wheel and all that in front of the player. So that's actually how I play Forza for the most part. There are some areas in Forza where you get in very, very tall, let's just say like farmlands, and it's like, okay, I can't see anything but just corn being shucked off my windshield, so I have to switch to third person temporarily. But for the most part, I'd say a good 95% I'm in first person mode. I thought the interiors on them were really nicely done, very well represented. And then I played Gran Turismo 7. I was like, okay, this is a whole nother level right here. I was like, holy church, this is really nice. But I mean, that's Sony's fault. It's not a monetary issue. I could have pre-ordered Gran Turismo just like everybody else did. It's just the they did it dirty, you know, and they put the microtransactions in there, and they really messed up the economy in the game, and it was all in an effort to sell microtransactions. I mean, I'm a fan of games and of people. I put those two things before a company. Uh, I'm not a fan of Sony or Microsoft. Fan is short for fanatic. I'm not a fan. I'm a gamer. So I call out Sony when they do their bull chips. I do the same with Microsoft. Uh, do I have a preference? Sure. The preference would be the PlayStation. But I'm not going to sit here and fly Sony's flag. If they do something asinine, I'm going to call them out for it. If you look at the TSGP panel, there's a reason why all of us have PlayStation as a preference, even though half of us have an Xbox. There's a reason for that, and I'm there for chat service or fan service. I'm there for the people. I'm not there for Sony. I'm not there for Microsoft. We're there, as far as I'm concerned, to serve, to tell the public what we see, what we experience, so they can make better decisions. And it takes a village, as far as to us giving them the best clue of where to spend their money, so to speak. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything Xbox does is bad. It's not. I think Game Pass is good for a lot of stuff. Indie devs is one of them. Smaller studios is one of them. They can get their upfront money and help them start up. Uh, it also helps the actual fans themselves, as far as if they can't afford the games, yeah, you can pay the subscription. But even with myself, even though, again, it's not a monetary issue, I hiccup my own Game Pass service because there were months where I was just like, okay, financially this is just dumb. I'm spending a lot of money every month on my Game Pass Ultimate subscription. So I went and I just bought gift cards for it. So when something comes out, I just run the gift cards and keep it rolling. I'll let it lapse. I never did the dollar thing. I kind of regret that because I just started buying these cards, and when I'm ready to go, when something comes out, I'll just put it on there, play it, move on. But, like with Forza, I did purchase it because um, when you play Forza on Game Pass, you still have to buy the DLC. So yeah, the game is there, but the DLC isn't. So it's like, well, and it's, if I'm gonna go that far as to buy the DLC, I'm gonna want the game that goes with it. So when there is hiccups in
Yep.
my service, I still have the game. It's like, okay, well, you haven't blocked me out because I own the disc, so you still have to let me play.
Let's
Uh,
talk about that real quick. So, I was reading the article today that showed what games were coming to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium this month, and it's a decent lineup. It's nothing that's making me just go, "Oh, that's so great! I can't wait to play that." But then, as like, after I got through all the photos of the games, because I don't read, I actually read the next paragraph, and it was saying what games were going away,
uh-huh.
and Spider-Man is going away. It's leaving the service, and I understand. I know why they're doing it. It's
Which
because,
Spider-Man? The first one?
yeah,
Or Miles Morales?
the
Okay.
first one. They're doing it because that's the entry point from the PlayStation Sony verse, and you have Inside the Spider-Verse 2 or Across the Spider-Verse 2 coming out, and I bet they're doing it to so if a kid wants to play that or something like that, then the parents have to buy the game, right? And
Okay.
so I
Makes
think that's
sense.
why they're doing that. But here's my problem, piggybacking off what you said about DLCs. What if they purchased the City That Never Sleeps DLC or like all of that? Now they're left with this DLC that they can't play because they can't access the game, but they have it, right? I mean, it's there. What about the person
Sure.
that purchased or that played Assassin's Creed Valhalla when it was on the service and now has that extra DLC and all this other stuff?
Well,
And
that's part of the Game Pass hook, to be transparent with you.
well,
And I think
sure.
that might go with PSN as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, here's the deal. I know people are wondering like why we're just staring at this little screen, but I can go in here and I can like go to any game and it'll be you can pull up the DLC menu, like the add-ons menu in the PlayStation, and it doesn't matter if it was an extra title, if it was a PS Plus title, if it was a premium, I can purchase DLC for it all day long. And if that game goes away, I lose all that, or I lose my ability to access all of that DLC, right?
Correct.
I absolutely hate that. And it didn't really hit me until you mentioned what you said, and I was like, well, crap, that's right. Spider-Man's leaving, and I only know that because Spider-Man's one of the few games that I bought the game brand new and then bought the DLC afterwards. Typically, if I know a game has a DLC roadmap, I will wait to purchase it until the DLC comes with the game. I'm just I don't like paying for incomplete titles. It bothers me.
Gotcha.
So I just don't do it. Like that was one of the things that Final Fantasy 15 had. It had uh, different episodes that kept getting released afterwards, and they were like backstories for all the main characters. So it was kind of cool, but just release that crap as like free stuff. Like I'm sorry, you've already got my money. Just give me the rest of the game that you didn't have ready at the beginning now. Like, but that is, and that is the strategy, right? Get their foot in the door, give them that first taste of it. If they fall in love with it, give them extra stuff that they can purchase. Where you get into the problem is games like what you're talking about with Gran Turismo, where you have all of these microtransactions that just get shoved into a game, right? I think putting GT7 on uh, the PlayStation subscription service, the PlayStation Premium or Extra, I think that would be an act of financial genius because you get their foot in the door in a racing game that keeps you on the hook and then sends you down that road of microtransactions. Do I like that? Absolutely not. It'd be a sleazy freaking thing to do, and I hope that if that happened, everybody would point out that this is just a way for Sony to milk you for more money. I absolutely hate it, but from a financial standpoint, it's pure genius. Like, you know what I mean?
It'd be easier to stomach. I mean, if GT7 was free. I mean, it's as far as I'm concerned, because then if you do end up spending 20 or 30 bucks or something like that, I mean that's one of the ways that what is that one game they have that's free that they actually make really good money on it because it doesn't cost anything. Hang on here. I'm on my second PlayStation, so I don't think I have it downloaded here, but let me look at
Second PlayStation, you big baller.
hang on here. It still shows my library. Um, what is the one with the ninja-like robots in it, man?
What?
Yeah, they've got these robots in there that are like ninjas, and that's really kind of their stick.
That's their thing? Like you have robot ninjas. Like that's the sales pitch. Like you walk in and go, so what's y'all's game that y'all are trying to pitch to us? Robot ninjas. Get done.
I'm
Here's
sure
$1 million.
Toolman, I'm sure Toolman knows what I'm talking about, but it's oh my God, this is gonna drive me bananas now.
Is it on PlayStation?
It is. It
Is
is.
it free to play?
It is. Um, what is the damn name? I haven't played it in so long. I can't pause Division 2, so I'm trying to get it to a safe
not
spot so I can
Warframe?
look. It is. It's Warframe.
Okay.
So that game makes a lot of money because there's no charge for it, and people spend money in there actually pretty freely and happily to do it to support it. And it is a good game. I came into it a little late, and there's so much I'm behind on it with. I'd have to spend a lot of time to get caught up. It's not that I'm not willing to do it. It's just I'd have to just throw it back on my backlog again. But I do like Warframe. If they did that, I mean, you could do the same thing with Gran Turismo 7, and that's kind of what they did with Gran Turismo Sport. And what they changed between Sport and 7 is you can no longer just buy the car. You have to buy the prerequisite amount of credits to get the car, and then it's sold in these funky increments to where you have to buy two different packs of credits. So that's where it becomes sleazy, and then the games, in essence, they went from $4.99, $6.99, $5.99 per car to 20, 30, $40, depending on which one you wanted to buy. So that was where the fan outcry came from, and that even pissed me off. I mean, even if you have the money to do something like that, doesn't mean you want to just throw it away. Uh, if you look at Jeff Bezos, even though he's just filthy stinking rich, he still likes a deal too. So it's one of those things where it's just like it was totally unnecessary. It's just I looked at it as fan abuse. People who are fanatics over it, the ones that's going to suffer the most. And again, that's for me. That's kind of what I'm here for. Is just to actually serve the community, and to see Sony abuse their fan base like that. That really peeved me off, man. I was just like, you know what? I've got other things to play, man. I don't really need Gran Turismo 7, and I was going to buy it. I ended up getting Grid Legends instead, and actually enjoyed it. It had one of the best for a racing game. It had one of the best racing game stories.
Yeah.
That you can find out there, and it's not a graphical slouch. It's no Gran Turismo 7, but it's good. And I say the same thing about Forza. It's no Gran Turismo, but it is very good. It's a very different style of game. And I'll even give Forza props on their rally and just dirt racing altogether, because for everything that Gran Turismo does right, even down to the VR, their rally, oh man, it's horrible. It's it's just like, yeah, y'all should have just cut this out of the game.
Just don't do it.
It is literally that bad, man. To where it's like the joke of the community. If you go on their Reddit forums or whatever. That's what everybody complains about, is how bad the rally racing is. And it's very restrictive. It doesn't respond very realistically on dirt. Now on pavement, they've got some of the best asphalt queens I've ever seen. But in dirt, it's just like, oh man, it's hard to control. It feels like you're on ice. It's just, again, it's very restrictive. It doesn't respond right if you nudge a boulder or anything off track. It's like an automatic stop. Whereas if you do that in Forza, it will respond. And Forza is not a sim, but it will respond more like a sim, where you just kind of bounce off that particular item. Same thing if you went out, you wrecked your truck and you sideswiped it up against a rock, it would just throw it off. It wouldn't just dead stop because you hit a rock, unless you hit it dead on, and it's kind of expected. But
man, see, it's one thing to, I would consider myself a PlayStation fan, right? I am a bit of a fanatic when it comes to PlayStation, but I also don't have the financial ability, well, let me rephrase that. I don't have the financial desire to have more than one TV in my house or more than one console in my house, one gaming apparatus, right?
I can understand that.
I have my PS5, I got my big freaking TV on the wall, I have a sound bar, and my son has a Switch. That's what we have. I try so hard to, like, push my kids outside or to, like, encourage that. Like, my son does so well with not being attached to a screen. It's phenomenal. I don't know how I accomplished that and how his mom accomplished that. It just makes no sense to me. But it's great. Like, there's times where I'm like, dude, do you even want your Switch anymore? Oh yeah, Dad, I love it. He ain't played that dude in like a week and a half. I know. And then there's like days he'll play it for like the whole day. That's all he does. And so, like, I definitely understand what you're saying, but I feel that we need to be able to call things, down the middle, right? If a game comes out and has terrible combat, terrible graphics, and is released in a very crappy state, we should be able to sit there and say this has happened, right? Like Redfall has done this. But at the same time, if we look at a game that somebody, talks about, like let's say Halo, right? Halo Infinite. So many people bag on Halo and talk about how bad it is, especially from the Sony community. And like the gunplay looks cool, the environments look good, it runs at a stable, solid frame rate, and overall you have a good, complete now game, right? But like then you look at something like Forspoken, where you have beautiful combat, wonderful character design, and like amazing, great mocap. That's where Sony came in and helped with the mocap. Like great mocap in it, but the environments look like they took them from a PS3 title and then took away the shadows that were on a PS3. And like it was just bad in that sense. And we should be able to sit there and be honest with ourselves and go, no, listen, I understand. I get it. But just like you're going to tell me that even though Halo was released incomplete, it's still a good game, I'm going to look at you and say, you know what? Just because the shadowing and the building textures and environmental textures in Forspoken are just awful, there's still a good game in there, right? And being the voice of reason and being here for people is literally why I started my channel. Like, I was listening to folks like Game Cross who would do all these PSN sale videos, and I still watch every one of his videos every single day. And then I would listen to TCMF and listen to his channel. He does 3 things a week, and I would like hear all this stuff and just these guys who were completely like Game Cross is all about PlayStation, right? But he doesn't go into the warring side of it. Same thing with TCMF. He does little jabs here and there, but he doesn't really like go into it.
Sure.
And so I think people like that are for the community also. I think now granted, we have our, the Saltiest Gaming podcast. On that, it's definitely the role of the podcast. We're salty at that point. Like that's the point of the podcast is to point
Sure.
out these stupid things that are being done. But we also point out stupid stuff that Sony does, right? Like before his
Correct.
power went out, we were supposed to be talking about the new PlayStation handheld, and I was ready to hear like a Jez rant on that or like something of that nature because yeah, Sony needs to be called out for that. Like that's, if you don't give us at least some sort of like insertable storage change out, I don't know, but figure it out. Like I should be able to play my PS4 titles at
To me, that's the
minimum.
whole point is that, and remember I tell you I hate to speculate. I don't know what it is, so it's really hard for me to pass judgment on something that hasn't even been officially announced or even confirmed.
Sure.
Now, if it is what they're saying it is, then yeah, it would make a whole lot of sense. But until it's actually out or at least confirmed by Sony themselves that that does exist and that's how it works, uh, then yeah, I'll pass my judgment on them. But I can't sit here and tell you something sucks if at least we don't know the specs of what it is, what it does, and how it works. I can't say I can tell you if it's for me or not. If unless I can't tell you about it unless I buy it. I can tell you if I know what it is, but we don't even know if that's what it looks like. Is that actually it? I have no clue.
Sure. So like here's my thing on it. And if you take a PlayStation DualSense controller and that costs $70, right? Retail.
Hmm.
If you get one of the colored one, it's 75. And by the way, the blue one is by far my favorite color that they have. Anyways,
I like that one.
it's so awesome. I freaking love it. And it's actually
I
what I
have
have in my
all
hand right
the
now.
colors, as you say.
Wow. Please don't start that. I don't need to get canceled before I get started, okay? That's not
Nothing to
that's
get canceled over.
Wait, you can say that, right? Like
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
yeah, I'm
Well,
about to say
because
you can
what
say
what
that.
what does the NAACP stand for? That's kind of the way I look at that. So a lot of
Right.
people like they kind of raise their eyebrow at me if I say color. They're just like, I'm like, what? I mean, but yes, I'm black, so I guess that makes all the
Right.
difference in the world. But it's
Right.
like, what? Well, until the NAACP changes their name, I don't know. That's still terminology we use, I guess.
So
Um,
that's what I was referencing because like I was like, well, heck, he can say that, I can't. But the shit, what was I talking about? The
PlayStation controller colors. I do have
oh,
all of them,
okay, cool. So yeah, so you take the DualSense,
even
it's
the God
seventy
of War.
dollars,
Uh-huh.
and you do what the speculation is, which I don't mind speculating. I think sometimes talking and I'm not here to give an official like PlayStation news report. I'm here to have a really fun live show and a speculation sometimes going into what ifs and what you would do or what a company might do. That's fun. So like
To
you
me, there's nothing wrong with speculation. Just don't get mad with your speculation. Like,
oh no, 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 no.
like Jez does. Like Jez was going on. I was like, holy church, Jez, we don't even know if that's what it is. He's like, what are we doing here? Why did you do that? It's like we don't know if they did that or
But
not.
here's the deal. If they do that, his reaction is totally on point. So I think that he might be coming from the premise of like if this is true, then Sony's a bunch of idiots. So here's my
Well,
thing
yeah,
though.
but that's him, and that's how he is, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not me. I'm not gonna adopt that style. Once I
Right.
see something and I know what it is, then yeah, I'll tell him, okay, you shouldn't have oughta had done that. You know?
So you take the DualSense at $70, you split it in half,
Mhm.
you extend it some, like make it a bit taller, and then you put a 8-inch screen in there. And you tell me that I'm sitting here right now playing my PlayStation, and I could look down at this controller that I'm using to play my PlayStation at the same time and switch it seamlessly to a remote play, and my wife or kids can take the TV or whatnot, and because it's integrated fully, it has haptics, it has all this other stuff. That to me right there is worth about $229. Okay? Because essentially you're buying a second screen at that point. But, but, if it doesn't have the haptics, if it doesn't have seamless integration, if it's not if it is literally just what the rumor is saying it is, that thing it can't go for anything more than 200 bucks or nobody's going to buy it. Now, if they offer cloud gaming with it, ooh, that'd be so cool. I would be here for that in a heartbeat. Cloud gaming that could run at like 1080p at, 60 frames per second, it'd be too powerful for Redfall, but it would be really fun to be able to have that type of okay, I have my entire PSN digital library at my
Uh-huh.
fingertips.
Well, yeah, and it's just like what you said when I was hospitalized. Hey, don't you wish you had a cute light? It's like because I wasn't on my meds. I was sleeping like a pig in the sun when I was hospitalized. I was out because I wasn't taking my injection. I didn't have them with me. So I was gone. And if I wasn't asleep, I was reading or I was talking to one of the nurses that would come in the room. Like they were good company, actually, good bedside manner. So
That's not always a thing in hospitals.
it's not. It doesn't look like a product for me. I don't really game on the go because when I'm gone, I'm extremely busy or I'm driving. The few instances where I would want to remote play anything, or even which is the reason why I don't have a Switch. is because it's just not something that would first of all, I'm not really big on Nintendo games. That's number one. So there would be very little that I would play on there. But most of the games that come out on the Switch, which is something that a lot of people don't pay attention to, they come out on the big consoles. Like I have a lot of Switch games on my PlayStation 5
And they're cheaper.
and on my Xbox. They are, and my Xbox Series X. Like there's one, and I don't know why. It's called Sky Rogue. It only came out on the Series X, but it's not in PSN, which I found out the origins of it was from the Switch. So again, just like, if there's a genre that I don't play, I still respect it for what it is and what it has done to gaming. Uh, so in that regard, I do still buy Switch titles. I just don't buy them on the Switch. Now that doesn't hold true for all titles because Bayonetta 3 didn't come out on either console. I'm hoping that it does because I'm a Bayonetta fan, and that Bayonetta 2 has been just locked into the bowels of the Wii U all the way to present date. It's still not out on anything else. So, but I did buy a Switch for my great nephew, the guy you gave the God of War code to. I bought a Switch for him for his birthday, which is very, very close to Christmas. So we try to. It's like December the 18th. So we try to make sure that he has something for his birthday and still has something for Christmas. Um, but
Respect. My son's birthday is, my youngest is November, third week in November, and my oldest is first week in January. So like we divide. We're like, no, we're not just gonna do that crappy thing where it's like, hey, we're gonna give you Christmas and birthday on the same day, because that crap, that is a worse
my older
rope-a-dope
brother.
than 60 frames per second games is what this console is for. Like, that is the worst, like, sucker punch ever. It's,
My older brother, his birthday is really close to Christmas, and he grew up. I grew up watching him go through that frustration with family members. That'd be like, okay, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, here you go, type of deal. He always felt like his birthday was overlooked, and his birthday is actually a day before my nephew's on after December the 19th. So, yeah, he always got the sucker punch of, yeah, here you go, and they're just like, really. With me, my birthday's in February, so it was perfect because right after I was done with my holiday toys, it was like, okay, it's time for some new ones. It's my birthday, so I get something else, They're right
so,
there.
so speaking of holidays, that's when I got a lot of games. That's not a lot. That's when I got the games that I got, was on holiday birthday, right? It's actually a lot of the funny thing is it's still that way today. Like, a lot of the games that I buy brand new are usually around the holidays, and I'm like, hey, honey, I'm about to go spend 140. Don't worry about getting me anything for Christmas. Like, thanks. And it's like, I go and I buy them and whatever. But, like, what? The final question, because it's getting late and I gotta work in the morning. But
Yeah.
what is your favorite franchise? And within that franchise, what is your favorite game? I'm gonna go ahead and go first because this whole night I've referenced Final Fantasy, and so my favorite franchise is Final Fantasy. Ever since 7, but I actually hope I get the Pixel remasters for my birthday. That's actually what I'm really wanting this year. Um, but Final Fantasy X is probably my favorite in the entire series of the mainline entry. My favorite, if you take every game back, like, all of them, which includes all the spin-offs and everything, and I haven't played every single one, but I would really say Final Fantasy VII Remake is it's gonna fight for that top spot on any given day. So those are mine. I love it. I love the story. I love the lore. The combat systems, the level up systems, the fact that you can be hunting and grinding and just doing so many things to get your levels up, to find the next achievement, to find the next chest, to find the way to get the next upgrade unlocked on your sphere grid, which in Final Fantasy X, that's how you level up your characters and like get them different stat boosts and stuff like that. So it's such a good game. It's outside of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's the only Final Fantasy VII I have beaten more than twice. Because I think I've beaten it. I think I've beaten 10. I think I've beaten 10 3 or 4 times. And one of them I got so close. I still have yet to got the perfect ending. But one of them I got so close, but I didn't talk to a certain character on one of like on a certain mission. I didn't talk to this guy, and it freaking sucked because I looked online for hours, and this was before there were a ton of like videos on YouTube and stuff like that. So everything was all like text based. So I was going to IGN reading articles. I was going to, uh, dude, I want to say I went to, dude, what was that old site? Somebody just mentioned it in a video the other day. Oh, Cheat CC. I went there because they had walkthrough guides on there, and one of them was like a 100% walkthrough, and I found out from there that I missed this one bastard. And oh, I was so mad because I got 99% and I didn't get the 100% ending. So I'm actually playing through it again. I now have made it a point to talk to that damn dude, and I'm
Sorry,
hoping.
Thrifty.
No, you're fine. I made it a point. But anyways, Final Fantasy X is amazing, and it's by far my favorite game within that franchise. So, what's yours?
Well, it's a relatively new franchise as far as it goes. So it was born in 2016, and it actually took me off guard 'cause it was one of the games I overlooked, and that would be the Division franchise. Uh, the amount of hours that I've logged between there's only two that are out. So the second one is my favorite. Uh, I've got right now over 8,900 hours in the second one. I did, uh, man, right at 5,500 in the first one. The only reason why I stopped playing the first one because the second one came out. So, and the hook for me on that is just there's no competition. There's not another military shooter that's out there. It's not apocalyptic. I'd say it's more of a crisis setting. Um, that's that's military. There are other RPG shooters that are out there that are looter shooters, but they're usually in space or something like that. There's not another one that's like military based. Uh, and that particular loot just really got me. The strategy that's in it, the camaraderie, all of it just really appealed to me. So that would be my favorite franchise, and game within franchise would definitely be Division 2. But I still play the first one every now and again, even though it's, I wouldn't say life support. It's probably in maintenance mode right now. Uh, but just very good games, and it was one of the ones that I did the beta testing for. And like yourself, I buy the majority of my games over Black Friday. So games that I'm not sure about, I'll put them on what I call my Black Friday list. Perfect example, like Forspoken would have been like a Black Friday title. If it hadn't been for all the controversy that was surrounding it, where I was like, all right, I got to check this out. It would probably be on my Black Friday, sitting in a draft or a note somewhere until Black Friday comes out. Then I'd go back and start sweeping those titles. But like the big ones, like the Spider-Mans and the Gods of War and all that other stuff, those are titles that, I look at as like, these are not going to go down in price anytime soon. So I just buy those, It's like, all right, I might as well just get them. But yeah, it would definitely be Division 2.
Division 2. Now, that, how many hours again do you have in that? What is it, 13,000?
13,000 collectively. If you had the first and the second one together, I have over 13,000 hours in both.
That's
Uh,
insane, man. I don't know if I have 13,000 hours of gaming actually played in my life. Like, I, I'm sure I have 1,300. I'm sure I have that. Because I had that almost just last year. But like,
Before that, I'd have to say GTA would have taken that crowd because it was the one game that took me away from GTA. Because I just like, and you have to keep in mind that like open world third person games really didn't gain popularity until GTA 3, and that game sucker punched me like the Division did. Uh, and it was one where I wanted to do everything. I think I had about 600 hours in Gran Turismo, and GTA 5. Collectively just playing it. Just actually playing the game. And then when Division came along, I was still playing both of them side by side, but I noticed the more I learned about the Division, the more I wanted to play it and wanted to know more about it. And once I saw how intricate it was, because I started playing Division One completely wrong. I was playing it like a cover-based shooter, and it's not. It's a looter shooter, RPG mechanics in it. It wasn't until I found a gun that had a talent on it, I was like, ravenous, what does this mean? Or predatory, what does that mean? And that didn't come until you got into like the purples and stuff like that, or the blues. And once I finally looted that one weapon and I started paying attention to it, instead of just looking at, oh, this gun is stronger than the last gun or whatever. uh, and then when I got my first exotic, I was like, whoa, what is this, right? This Colonel Bliss holster, what does it do? So I had to look at, oh, it's got a flashbang in it or something like that, or EMP jammer, and that just opened up a whole new world for me, and I was like, oh my god, and I kind of threw GTA in the trash. I was like, all right, you know what, I'm done with this.
just done with it. I don't want you. I don't care about you. Forget you.
Well, I even bought the $10 upgrade to see if that would like reignite my, and I still love sandbox games. That's still my favorite genre, overall. And the Division even scratches that itch because it's in an open world sandbox where, you and I could be on like totally different parts of the map doing something totally different, and the game would still allow it, which is one thing I did like about Gotham Knights. Which even though that was a 30 FPS game, to me it didn't really hurt the flow, but I think the flow could have been better with it. Uh, and I don't think they ever did patch in a 60 FPS uh, mode, and I think it's still 30 frames a second. But it works. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, my eyes are going to burn out because I play something at 30 frames a second. We've been doing that for decades now. Uh, but I get the industry standard now. That's pretty much the norm, is that people want their games in 60 frames, and they do look better in 60 frames a second. I can't deny that. But it's still a pretty good game. It's untethered. So again, you and I could be doing something totally different on two different sides of the map. We're not unlike Far Cry. When you get too far away, you start to get that fade or that warning message that you're getting too far away from your partner. I do like those aspects of it. But third-person games just overall, which I'm not a huge Ubisoft fan, but their formula seems to work as far as that regard. But I don't like all Ubisoft titles. Assassin's Creed is one of them that I don't really. I played the first one and I was like, okay, well, this isn't what I thought it was, and I just kind of moved on. I've always had a backlog somewhere. Any respectable gamer does. Uh, so all the Black Flag and Unity and all that, never played them. Uh,
That's
looked.
sad. Like
I'm so.
I say I say that because like Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, I'm sorry, Assassin's Creed 1, Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations and then Assassin's Creed 3 were just phenomenal games. Like they were so well done. The backstory was actually like and I say backstory, the secondary story to the main campaign that you play was so intriguing, and everything was like coming together in this perfect, beautiful, like, holy crap, it's all finally coming to culmination. And then they pulled The Last of Us 2, and after that, the games were kind of mid. But when they actually cared about the lore and the storytelling of it, and not just, hey, let's build this big, huge sandbox, throw somebody in here, give it an Assassin's Creed title, because, Camels in Egypt wouldn't really work as a game title. Like, it it really dissolved my care for the series. Now, they started bringing it back with Assassin's Creed Origins, which is the game I just made fun of. But within the new trilogy that's been out, or the new set of 3 games that they've done, Origins, Valhalla, Origins was by far the absolute best of those 3. It continued the story, and it continued the lore, and it pulled in a, like, you could go to the computer when you were in the real world. You could go to the computer and, like, see all these files and get all this lore and all this information on what has previously happened and what led you to even look for the ancestry line of Bayek, and like what's going on there. And so it kind of rebuilt the series structure. And like, so after that game I was like, oh man, they're back. They're doing it. It's going to be great. And then they released the crap that was Odyssey, and then they released the overbloated, overstuffed, useless and pointless Valhalla. And I have 30 hours in Valhalla, and I just hung it up. I'm done with it. I can't. The it's too open with too much little crap to do, that it becomes very tedious. And I like games that, even large games, right? I have 80 hours in God of War Ragnarok, and to me that's a large amount of time to spend in one game. It's not 13,000 hours, but it's still a large amount of time to spend in, especially in a single player game, right?
Sure.
That's a big game. And
Well, if you
that,
look at my Far Cry 6 playtime, which people still kind of scratch their heads at it, if it's something I enjoy, I play it. So I have 719 hours in Far Cry 6. Um, and people are just like, what were you doing, man? I was like, I was playing the game. What are you talking about? So they have kind of like, it's kind of like what they do on Division 2, where they have invaded missions, where your map becomes invaded by the Black Tusk again, which is the big enemy in Far Cry 6. Well, it's the same thing, or in Division 2. It's the same thing on Far Cry 6, where part of your map becomes, re-invaded, and you have to clear it out, and then there's things you can do to earn weapons and vehicles and stuff in the game. I was just doing that. I mean, if I enjoy the game, I'll play it. With me, the hook with me is not to sound cliche, but they say, first impressions are everything. With me, you got to get me on the first try through. If your stick kind of ticks my interest, then I'm in. So like Twisted Metal. First time I played Twisted Metal, I was like, okay, this vehicular combat is like the ish. And it was the same thing with Vigilante 8, which is like a Twisted Metal competitor. Those games right out of the box, they got me. Road Rash. As soon as I played Road Rash for the very first time, I was like, oh man, this is awesome. We're actually having, swing and punch combat on a motorcycle. So, you got me right out of the bat. But if it doesn't, and this goes with games that even have high regard, I'm not going to sit there and play it, just to be with the masses. Perfect example, Tomb Raider. Played the first one. I was like, okay, this was good. Not quite for me. I did finish it. And that was it. The end. Tomb Raider 2, 3, whatever else came after that. It was like, I even They even had a Tomb Raider that was in my subscription. I downloaded, I played it. I was like, yeah, no, still not for me. And I just moved on. And it was the same thing with Assassin's Creed. When I saw that they were, oh, well, they're going back in time through this machine, I was like, okay, you know what? This is campy. I can't do it. Um, I toughed it out because, again, it's one of those games that I bought. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go and play it. But then after that, it was like, I really didn't want anything to do with it after that because it just didn't tick the boxes for me. Um, so I'm not gonna force myself into the genre, but if they grab me off that first hook, I'm good, Or if the series doesn't progress, at least with me at the time, like with the whole Resident Evil thing, I felt like, okay, this is wash, rinse, three-peat, So I was like, all right, I'm done with it. This is enough for me. And I just never looked back. And again, there's enough out there to keep me busy or to keep me going, to where I don't circle back to it, or it just stays on the back burner, or it just dies out. And that's kind of what happened with the whole Resident Evil thing. And I hear you. Like I said, a lot of people saying 4 is the best one ever in the history of history. I get it. I'm not saying I won't check it. I probably will, but it's just like, okay.
Well, and that's so I have a thing that I do every year, right? It's I, I buy I buy typically in a normal year, I will buy 2 games at full pop, right? I'll,
Okay.
I'll I'll spend the 70 on them and I'll get it. Everything else, when it comes out, I usually have a price point for it in my head. Okay? So good example, Tales of Arise. It's a JRPG from Bandai Namco. I absolutely used to hate Bandai Namco because before you could consider me a Sony pony, I was a Square Soft poster child. Like, I loved that dang company. And that meant, okay, so think about the time that I grew up. I was, middle school, early middle school age during the Tupac and like Biggie East Coast, West Coast thing, right? And so I latched on to Tupac, and so I listened to a ton of West Coast rappers. And I didn't listen to Big, I didn't listen to Puff, I didn't listen to a lot of stuff that had Nate on it because he was real big with, he was good friends with Puff. Like, I just didn't do that. The furthest I went over was Cleveland for Bone Thugs and Harmony. And so, like, I had that at that time, right? And so I'm like, man, if I support something, I'm just in it all the way. And so Squaresoft was that company for me. Now, I still played stuff by other companies unless they made JRPGs, okay? So I didn't play things by Bandai Namco. I didn't play things by NIS or Atlas or Level 5 back in the day, if anybody still remembers Level 5. Like, I didn't play games by those companies because I didn't want, like, I don't know, I was stupid, I guess, but I didn't want to, like, not give my attention and my allowance money or whatever to those companies. I wanted to give it to Square Enix or Squaresoft at the time. And so,
Okay.
like, it, it's I buy so Tales of Arise I bought, but I had a price point in my head. I wasn't going to pay $60 for it, right? I had a price point of $30, and that's what I thought I'd pay on the price of entry. I'd go ahead and $30, okay. If I lose $30 and I hate the game, well, it's $30. I didn't spend 60, so I'm okay. And I bought it on Black Friday, and that's probably in my top 10 of favorite JRPGs ever. It might be in top 5. Just, it's such a good and well done story, and the combat is, their spin on how to do turn-based combat is freaking insane. I absolutely love it. So then I go and play Scarlet Nexus because that game had my interest because they released an anime that went with the game. And so like it was really cool because you'd watch an episode of the anime and there was always a code in that episode that you then put into the game and you'd get some free stuff. And so like really cool doing that kind of side by side, but I also wasn't going to spend $60 on that. My price point on that game was 20, and I ended up getting it for 20, and I really enjoyed it. I say all that to say I generally don't spend money on new titles just because I don't know if that game is going to grab me right off the bat. And I played, what was it? Oh, I played Last of Us 2, okay? And that game had me because of Last of Us 1. Well, then they jumped the shark 2 hours in. And I put the game down and didn't play it again until one of my buddies was like, hey, you want me to play Ghost of Tsushima? I want you to play Last of Us. I'll start Ghost of Tsushima. You start Last of Us. You can do a review on it, but don't do a review until you beat it. And I was like, okay, so you think this thing's going to win me over? Okay. And I got it for like $8. It was like, it was one of these things, but I played it a second time and I still didn't necessarily like the story, but I was able to go back through and appreciate the game for being the technical marvel that it was on the PS4, for being the, one of the best, like, stealth gunplay shooter type games, because I have a problem calling it a shooter. I have a problem calling it a stealth game because it's not really either, but both of those elements are used. You know what I mean? Like both of those elements are used in that game, but that's not the primary thing that the game is. I think it blends a lot of stuff and it does a really good job of that. The story is straight. It's straight ass. It just is. It's bad. It's bad pacing. It's a bad structure. The content of the story is okay. Anyways, I'm not doing a fucking review on this game. I've already done one. But there's games like that don't grab me on the first playthrough, and I go back and play them again. For this one, I hated it. For The Witcher 3, I played the first 3 hours of Witcher 3 probably 4 times. And now I have 112 hours in The Witcher 3. Because I went back and somebody said, hey, listen, it's a slow burn at the beginning. Get through it, go back, start playing it, and get past this certain point. And when you get your first lead as to where the person is at the beginning of the game that you're looking for, from there it just goes off. And so I did, and hell yeah, dude, I had 112 hours. And I still haven't beat that freaking thing. Like, I am so close to the end, and I think something else came out that took my attention because, well, I have a crap ton of stuff to play. But, anyways, I think I got off on a tangent. So,
No worries.
favorite franchise, Division 2, 1,300 hours between both of them. That's insane.
And don't feel bad. That was the one thing that I did with the Division 2 that I kind of low-key regret was I did the beta for Division 1. It was one of those guys like, yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, I liked it. I didn't really necessarily love it. Of course, keep in mind it was a beta, so it wasn't complete. I did put Division 1 on my Black Friday list. And I did. So it came out in March of 2016. I didn't pick it up until Black Friday because it was when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's that game I did the beta for, right? So I was like 6 months behind everybody else, and trying to figure out how to play this thing because it's once you get into it, it's very complex. It's got a lot of layers to it. I was like, oh, so this is how you're supposed to play this thing. But it was literally marketed by Ubisoft as a military shooter, and that was the whole reason why I had that premise in my head. This wasn't just something I just came up with on my own. That was how they marketed it. They had nothing about looter shooter at all. So yeah, I started the game off totally wrong, even at the late phase. So it wasn't until probably after Christmas, because I wasn't playing it that much. I was still going back and forth between it and GTA. So it wasn't until a good, I'd say January 2017 that I actually started getting into it like a normal person. Once I figured out what it was, because you got to keep in mind, I hadn't played any type of shooter of that genre where it has like the greens and then the blues and the purples and then the gold type of gear. I knew nothing about that entire system. So it was a very slow burn for me. That was the one game that introduced me to those type of mechanics where you have a legendary or an exotic item or something like that. I had never played a game like that prior to Division 1. So it was a learning experience like all the way around for me, even in that regard. But yeah, that was the one title that grabbed me, and that was the one I ended up ignoring. So don't feel too bad. You said you paid $8 for it, and you end up loving it.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I paid $8 for Last of Us. Ended up enjoying. I enjoyed my time with it. But I enjoyed it in spite of the story. Does that make sense? Like, the dude, I kid you not, and I said this in the review I did on it, but I spent an hour and a half watching Digital Foundry videos over what screen space reflections were, over what RTGI was, and over the techniques that Naughty Dog used in The Last of Us Part 2, because I could have sworn that they had ray tracing in the game on the PS4 Pro version, because the way they did their level designs and the way they used lighting in that game was, and I think I'm quoting this directly from Digital Foundry, it's not that they do ray tracing or that they're doing anything new. It's that they're doing all the same techniques perfectly. Like, that's what that game was as far as a visual showcase. They did everything that you could possibly do with the PS4 Pro, and they did it perfectly. So I can respect titles like that where, wow, you did great. Every aspect of this game is awesome, but the story is just dog shit. But then there's games like The Witcher that I bought the complete edition for $9.99, and the best $10 I've ever spent. Like, it really is the best $10 I think I've ever spent. The best 25 is still Chained Echoes. $25 games, the Chained Echoes is just stellar. But I am over my bedtime now. So,
Okay.
Church, let's go ahead and do what Salty does on the Saltiest Gaming Pod. Let's do which, by the way, Saltiest Gaming Pod, Thursday nights, 7 o'clock. Come on out. Church and I are on there. We're panel members. We're joined with Wooly and Jez and Salty. Of course, it's his show. But and Kofi. Yes, the guy who got me into freaking the rabbit hole that is Trails. Good Lord. Go ahead and let folks know where they can find you. There's 8 of us in here right now, so there's some people who may not know where to find you.
Xbox Live, Church Keys, PlayStation Network, Church Dash Keys, YouTube, Church Keys, and find me on TSGP every Thursday.
Sweet. Guys, thank y'all for those who stopped in the chat. Thank you for if you shared this out, if you commented in here, I really appreciate it. Toolman, you were awesome. Hero Down Under, appreciate your awesome comment. He actually, I want to tell you this, he said that love this episode. You guys are doing well and have and we have similar approaches to buying games. And I think that's what it is. Like, that's what shows like this are about. I feel like, there was a thing released today where like only 300 there's only like 350 million like gamers in the world, which I think it was like in the console world, but I don't necessarily buy that, but like 350 million. So we are a very niche market, and sometimes we don't have those outlets to be able to talk to other people about our passions, about our hobby, about like I can go to my church right now and try to talk to any one of those people there about a video game, and not a single person there knows anything about what I'm talking about. Uh,
Gotcha.
like, and so when I get into these shows or these chats or whatnot, it's a way to bring us all together and talk about this passion that we have that unless you knew that like your buddy in middle school or elementary school, unless like you went over to his house and saw, oh my goodness, dude, you have a NES, or you have a Super Nintendo, or you have the new Sega, or you didn't know. It wasn't something that people talked about all the time. It was a secondary thing, but now we're able to like communicate with each other, and I don't know, it's a sense of community that I really love. So anyways, thank y'all for stopping by. This is not a weekly show, it's not on a weekly basis. It's just whenever something strikes me and I have some thoughts, I'll try to bring some guys on here. Church was really gracious tonight to come on, and like I think I think when he actually saw the message, it was like 12 minutes before I was actually supposed to start. So like he dropped it and came on, and I really appreciate that. Really glad he mentioned earlier in the stream that he was in the hospital. Really happy he's out, and apparently is no more worse for wear than what he was before he went in the hospital. So I mean that's good. That's kind of what we want. We don't want to leave hospitals worse than when we went in. So really happy you're
I'm
doing.
a tough old bird dog. I'm
Oh,
good. A little sore, but I'm good.
I forget that you have like 14 years on me. I just, it's, because you're up there, aren't you? You're like 50, huh? Somewhere around there with a five.
51.
51. Yeah, so you got 15 years on me. But that's the thing. In gaming, it doesn't matter. There's gamers who are 60 years old. I went to a client's house the other day, and he had a little Series S in there, and I was like, dude, i- is that yours? And dumb question to ask, I know. I was in his house, and he was like, yeah, that's actually mine. Got my grandkids one, got me one, and we get on there every once in a while. We'll play Halo together, and I'm like, dude, like that's awesome. Like that's what I want for me and my kids when they get older. Like you go to your own house, I'm at my own house, we hop on, talk about life and kill some stuff. Like that's just fun. But anyways, once again, thank y'all for stopping by. I am going to end this stream now. It will be staying up on the channel. I'm gonna try to edit out those first like 12 minutes because I'm had some technical
Okay.
difficulties. But guys, I will talk to y'all later. And yeah,